Yeah, so 2024 is already heating up. It's already shaping up. And the two gorillas in the room, the two primary candidates, even though one's not officially a candidate yet, Trump and DeSantis, are both zeroing in on education. That makes me happy because, as you guys know, that I think is the most important issue of all the issues. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be taking center stage throughout the next 2 years of presidential politics. DeSantis, of course, has been on the warpath here in Florida against woke education throughout his term as governor. And Trump has also been dealing a lot with education, and he actually just recently released a video on what he would do with education in his second term. Obviously, both of them are promising to ramp up the culture wars. And by that, I don't mean they're going to launch a culture war. Really, what's happening here is conservatives are finally realizing that a war has been declared on them. And now conservative voters, grassroots Republicans, are asking their leaders to please come up with some sort of response in this war rather than continuing to allow the children to be radicalized, indoctrinated, dumbed down, sexualized, etc. So this is obviously a very, very big issue with Republicans and even a lot of Democrats. If you look at the polling, a lot of Democrats are upset with what's happening in the schools, too. So DeSantis, even though he's not formally announced yet, it's common knowledge in Tallahassee, they're all jockeying for position. Well, who's going to run for governor? Who's going to do this? Right. So they're all moving around. They all expect that DeSantis will be running soon. And he's got a pretty strong record on education as far as grassroots Republicans and conservatives are concerned already. Of course, he was the first to really punch back against Joe Biden on the crazy school stuff, the forced masking of kids, right? All that kind of stuff. He also went on a rampage against the woke policies. He tried to protect children against sexualization, at least in the younger years, the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill, which actually doesn't say that, and even the race mongering in the classroom. How exactly that would look at the federal level? Of course, the federal government has much less say over education, or at least in theory, has no say over education, constitutionally speaking. So we don't know exactly what his federal policies would be. But I think we can get some idea just based on what he's done. If you actually look at the radical left, for example, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, the most dangerous person in the world, according to Mike Pompeo, that's Randy Weingarten, and also the left-wing propagandists and New Republican stuff, they're actually arguing that DeSantis wants to destroy public education entirely. Trump, on the other hand, who, of course, is dominating in the polls right now, and he's just crushing everybody, including DeSantis, he released very recently a plan to save American education, which that's interesting. I don't know if you can save the Titanic of American so-called education. But one of the things he said is that he's going to stop funding it to woke school stuff. Check this out.
Here is my plan to save American education, restore power to American parents. First, we will cut federal funding for any school or program pushing critical race theory, gender ideology, or other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. Additionally, on day one, we will begin to find and remove the radical zealots and Marxists who have infiltrated the federal Department of Education. And that also includes others, and you know who you are, because we're not going to allow anybody to hurt our children. I will veto the sinister effort to weaponize civics education. We will keep men out of women's sports, and we will create a new credentialing body that will be the gold standard anywhere in the world to certify teachers who embrace patriotic values, support our way of life, and understand that their job is not to indoctrinate children, but very simply to educate them.
So there you heard it. It's a little bit longer than that if you want to go see the full version, but it gives you a sense of what he's up to. Now, during his last campaign, he actually said repeatedly, we might just want to abolish the Department of Education. This is obviously a change in tone rather than abolishing. I think Trump wants to try to use federal power and federal funding to get his way. Obviously, there's some potential pitfalls there. Like if another Democrat gets elected, they'll just use all that infrastructure to further weaponize the schools. But of course, this is going to be the key issue, right? Republican strategists figured out Virginia was a really good example of that education is what the voters are concerned about right now. You have a couple other candidates. You've got Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm not really sure they're going to play a big role in the 2024 election. But, I think it's a good thing that this focus is on education. It's absolutely necessary. The real question is, can these schools be saved? Can the cancer be reformed, or do we need to get rid of it? As far as I'm concerned, public schools are a burning building. If your children are inside, you need to run in and get them out. Later, we can discuss wallpaper and things like that. But anyways, 2024 is already shaping up to be really interesting, and I think the focus is going to be on the schools big time.